So there's always a lot of discussion about who the best player is in Blue Lock. I mean, it's the age-old question that everyone asks. To be honest, I don't think there is one defined answer, and to prevent an all-out war in the comment section, I instead want to make a video on playstyles. You know playstyles, it's how a player plays the game. It's the thing that makes a player unique, like Isagi having a calculating playstyle and Baro having a destructive playstyle. I feel like making a video on playstyles is similar to making a video about the best players, but it's not entirely the same. You'll see what I mean later on, and it's also not directly saying who I think is the best player. And I think there's no better way to do this than a tier list ranking every playstyle we've seen in Blue Lock currently. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button. At the time of this recording, we're currently at 6.4k subs, just that much closer to 7k, and it's actually unbelievable. I can't thank you guys enough, seriously. I also made a community Discord where I chat often and actually interact with my community, so if you're interested in that, join up, the link's in the description. Going back to the tier list though, how I want to do it, or how I'll actually do it, is one, divide all the characters by playstyles first and then rank them from there. I've had to re-record this video like 3 times already, and I think this is the best way of doing it without taking too much time. I'll basically be ranking them off screen and then explaining it on screen, and then moving on to the next play style, actually doing the tier list, etc. By doing this, we get 2 things: how well specific players fit their specific playstyles, because if we just ranked solely off of playstyles, it just wouldn't be balanced. Like, we can't determine a whole playstyle off of just one player. And then because of that, we're going to be able to tier list and put players that deserve higher or lower. For example, Nico and Isagi both have calculating playstyles, but we'd be putting Nico lower than Isagi because Isagi fits the playstyle more. He also has other weapons that support the playstyle. You see what I mean? Alright, that being said, we can actually start ranking these players. So how I'm going to divide it into playstyles is 1, I have a haven't seen list. This is obviously players we haven't seen or haven't seen enough of to give a semi-accurate rating. What the F tier is just, I don't really know. It's just players we don't know too much about, but we know enough. Like if they haven't stated their weapons or are just bad players. Weapon reliant is pretty self-explanatory as well. These people are weapon reliant but are not absolute weapons in the destructive tier list, which we'll get to in a second. The calculating playstyle, this is more for players that are, well, calculating. Just looking at the characters, you can already know, like Isagi, Karasu, Sai, stuff like that. And finally, the destructive playstyle are playstyles that are absolute weapons or are just destructive on the field. Technically, some people like Nagi could be called weapon reliant, but I think this fits in more. So we're gonna start off with the lowest tier in the what the F tier. We got Kuon, Igaguri, Imamura, Sendo, Iemon, Naruhaya, Kira, Okawa, Nanase, Wanime 1, and the U20 boys. Not too much explanation here since we don't know too much about them, but I'll rank them off screen and we'll see it from there. All right, there's a list. I had some trouble ranking these characters and later characters, so I made a C- tier. I feel like this is pretty accurate for these players. So let's just explain quickly, but D tier, I'm pretty sure you guys can all see. Naruhaya, Kira, Kuon, Iemon, and Okawa. Okawa did absolutely nothing. He was just Nico's dog the whole time and then got outscored by him. So yeah, Okawa has the worst playstyle in Blue Lock. Naruhaya was pretty weapon reliant, but I'm not going to put him besides all these other guys in weapon reliant. In fact, he was so weapon reliant that he got eliminated because of it, because he couldn't copy direct shot. Cool character with good development, but yeah, D tier. Kira at least didn't miss his direct shot, but he has no feats to prove himself. D tier as well. Same argument with Kuon. Bro has no feats besides flattening Nagi. His playstyle is being a cheater. I don't think that's a playstyle that anyone wants, so yeah. Nobody really cares about these players, but if you're wondering where Imamura is, I put him in haven't seen because Imamura just has no playstyle. So I guess technically the worst is Imamura because he just doesn't have anything, so yeah, Imamura is the lowest. But yeah, coming to the C- tier here, at the bottom we got the U20 boys and Wanima 1. They're really weapon reliant with no other weapons or feats to their name. That's why I put them in the what the F tier, and got beat by post 3rd selection Blue Lock. Top of C- tier is going to be Igaguri, Nanase, and Sendo. Igaguri at least is baiting fouls for his team, which can lead to a position change. It's pretty funny and essential for a lot of sports besides like golf. Nanase, we don't know his weapons, but he was able to link up with Isagi. Same thing with Sendo, except he has more feats like defending in the U20 and also working together in the Ubers, doing no looks and stuff. I don't really want to spend too much time on these guys. I'll go more in depth with other characters later, but weapon reliant playstyle is next. If you need an explanation on what a playstyle means or forgot about it, I talked about it earlier in the video, so just go back a little bit. But besides that, we're gonna go rank these guys. Aryu, Tokimitsu, Raichi, Kunigami. All right, you guys can see just enough of that. Let's rank them. All right, so immediately we're seeing a lot more changes. I'll be discussing players from bottom to top first, and the first change is Otoya in the C- tier. Now, we gotta be honest, Otoya kind of just sucks. I feel like they try to make him good and scary, but off the ball is such a secondary weapon that I feel like at the level they're playing, in order to make him stand out, he literally needs to be teleporting, or at least given another weapon. His other weapon weapon's speed has been used only as a passing option and nothing more. Honestly speaking, he isn't as trash as these people in the C- tier, but his playstyle of being weapon reliant just sucks, especially because he has a trash weapon. His skills do make up for it though, like being able to make the shot unlike Sendo, so I'm actually gonna move him to the bottom of C tier here. Ryu is kind of the same argument, just weapon reliant, and even though it's physical specs, he needs something a little more to make him stand out and have a good playstyle. Like nothing else is really separating him from just being another defender besides height. Like you'd rather have Aiku who can clear high balls just like Ryu, and on top of that has a bunch of other skills like marking people, shutting down the front lines, yada yada. Unlike the last two though, Zantetsu is good, has good weapons and a good playstyle, but he just doesn't have the skills and feats to prove it and back it up. Then that's why he's so low on the list. Once he gets his development in PXG though, I see him going up. Kunigami. Now this is probably the first curveball and something you've been wondering about. Now Kunigami's current playstyle is an all-for-one egotistical playstyle that is reliant on his weapons, which is being two-footed and having a good physique. Physique is a secondary weapon just like off the ball and long reach, but being two-footed is good. The only thing is that he just doesn't have the skills to back up this specific playstyle. Kunigami so far has not proved that his egotistical playstyle of not passing and doing everything by himself has worked. His weapons haven't supported him, and when it does, it's because someone else is handing it to him. So Kunigami isn't self-reliant, and although he has good natural skills and weapons, he can't support his playstyle, and that's why he's going to be lower on the list. This is why I say Playstyles tier list is different than a player's tier list. As a player, Kunigami is in C tier. He isn't at least on the same tier as Otoya, who's done nothing, but his playstyle and what he does with his playstyle isn't good because it just doesn't support the team, it isn't self-reliant, and he hasn't proved it to be good playstyle. Tokimitsu and Raichi have the same argument, pretty much being defenders and their playstyles utilizing their skills to do it. I assume Tokimitsu is going to be a defender as well, but what he has on top of Raichi is his fast speed, big physique, and on top of stamina. Now I would say at this current time that Raichi does have better feats and has proven his playstyle to work out more, but I think Tokimitsu's weapons and stuff still beat out Raichi's more current feats in the Uber's game. This is why making a tier list is so good for this, because we're gonna have these one-on-one matchups. Like, are most current feats still better than old feats? And then having to balance and judge their mentality, plus weapons, stuff like that. And why I put these two above Kunigami is, one, they've proved that their playstyle works. Raichi, for example, has been going off, and two, they supporting the team. Like Toki is linking up with Rin and Raichi blocking Snuffy. They're doing things that Kunigami isn't doing with his current playstyle. And although his weapons and skills are better than them and he is a better player, I think they get outweighed by those facts. Up in the B tier is going to be Chigiri, Corona, and Ness. Ness and Corona have the same argument as well. Fast passing options, and even though Ness kind of sucks, at least he's able to beat NEL level players in 1v1s and still hit those passes. Corona is kind of levels above him because he doesn't get the ball stolen every 2 seconds and also just has the better weapon, which is fast turns, which I think is really good. It supports the team, helps him become more self-reliant. It really is just a valuable weapon, which can be added to another valuable weapon like Isagi's Metavision to make it even more valuable and destructive. Now I think Chigiri in high B tier is just perfect for him. Chigiri's speed isn't really an absolute weapon, but it does get the job done. We also see that his weapons and skills do align with his playstyle, but in terms of how good it is, it kind of falls short compared to other players. The whole point of his playstyle is to pretty much use his weapon to create an opening, but just due to the nature of his weapon, it has a lot of flaws, stamina being one of them. Another one is predictability. Almost every time Chigiri has used his speed, there's been someone countering him because they know where he's going. Loki has the same problem, but since he has an absolute weapon, he's able to recompensate. That's why I say Chigiri is a little lower. Like if you could pick between Chigiri and Bachira, who both do the same thing, they get past the team, you'd want to pick Bachira because he has a lot more mix-up and stuff with dribbling and also passing. So I think even though Chigiri is a strong player, post 44 snipe and everything, he's in high B tier for now. But now in the A tier, and we got Bachira, Gagamaru, and Yukimiya. I originally put Yukimiya in B tier, but in my opinion, I decided to bring him up to A tier. His playstyle of winning 1v1s is really good. You kind of want that in a player, but his mentality and skills just do hold him back. But he does have some skills. He's entered the flow, has a bunch of different gyro shots, and then the 1v1 weapon with his dribbling is a pretty good combination and creates a pretty good playstyle. So even though Yukimiya gets trashed a lot, I think he is good at getting past the team and has a good playstyle. Gagamaru is next, and honestly, he's kind of hard to rank, yet a no-brainer at the same time. Gagamaru no doubt is the best goalkeeper goalkeeper we've seen. We just haven't really seen a new Gen 11 goalkeeper or anything yet, so there isn't really anyone else to scale him to. He relies on his instincts to play, and his instincts are really good. That's why he's so high up. But at the same time, I do see some improvements he can make. Like, I think he's gonna counter Predator's Eye soon, or maybe he'll be able to see the weak spots in the defense like Isagi. The Gangamaru does have some room to improve, and that's why he's in the A tier for now. Bachira in high A tier is also another no-brainer. He could blitz teams, his playstyle is getting through the team, but he can also support others with his passes. So just having that overall flexibility, being able to pass, dribble, all that other stuff, it really supports his playstyle, and not to mention that his weapon is super self-reliant. Like, he technically doesn't need any other people, and that's a huge factor of why I put him up so high. I'll zoom out a little bit, but so far this is the list, but we're moving on to the next one, which is a calculating playstyle. This includes Sai, Isagi, Nico, Hiyori, Ryo, Karasu, and Aiku. All of these players I consider having a calculating playstyle. They obviously have other skills, but yeah, they have big brains. Alright, there's the ranking. We got a lot of players in the A tier, and a calculating playstyle is just really strong. You could see how many of them ranked really high, but the lowest is going to be Hiyori in the bottom B tier, but above Ness. The only thing is that Hiyori just doesn't have enough feats. I also do think that Corona is better than Hiyori right now. That might just be different when Hiyori subs in, but he has a really passive playstyle and he just fits that. His whole character is literally just that. The only thing is that he just doesn't have the ambition to play or make active plays. He kind of just does what he's asked or what he thinks is good. He isn't one to take initiative. So if I were to compare him to someone like Bachira, even though they can both pass, Bachira is above him because if it comes down to it, he'll dribble and get past the team himself. And again, even though his playstyle is passive and he fits it, he does get beat out by these other players because of it. Nico is next above Corona and below Chigiri. I think he's really interchangeable between the three. Now that Nico has Metavision though, he's really starting to awaken his brain, but his brain is really all that he has. He's kind of a one-trick pony because of it. And he's also in the defender position, and we have a lot of those, but what makes him special is that Metavision and brain he has. So it keeps him above players like Ryu, who's also a defender and the same team. You're probably getting the gist of how I rank now, taking into account their playstyle, position, other stuff like that. Now between Chigiri and Nico, I don't know if Nico's defensive feats are better than Chigiri's offensive feats. You also have the fact that Metavision is just completely broken, but I think Chigiri is just more flexible, being able to run everywhere and press players with his speed and stuff. So yeah, he's gonna stay above him. Next in the calculating playstyle is Karasu in the A tier. Karasu is just a really good flexible player. In my opinion, Karasu is just good, but not great, and that's why he's not going in the S tier. He hasn't gotten the development he needs yet. I mean, we just haven't seen him yet, but currently Karasu isn't on the same level as the people I put in the S tier. Yeah, he has the same weapons, good spatial awareness, good analytical skills, but when you compare him to Isagi, who is literally transcending what a calculating playstyle is now, he kind of falls short. I think his overall specs are good, but he needs a little something to bring him up. Kind of like Ryo, who got copy, Metavision, and all that other broken stuff. Now, you might be wondering why I put 4 people in the S tier. I honestly had such a hard time ranking where they would go, and I think they all deserve S tier. We got Sai, Ryo, Aiku, and Isagi. Starting off with Isagi, you might be questioning why I put him so low. In terms of a calculating playstyle, you could say that he beats all these players in S tier and maybe even Sai, but the thing is with Isagi is that he has a lot of room to improve, especially in the self-reliant category. Being self-reliant is hard, you need to have good weapons for it, like Bachira or Chigiri, and that's why Isagi kind of lacks. In his playstyle alone, like in individual 1v1s, Aiku is more self-reliant than him because he's literally just stopping all these players by himself. Honestly, same can't be really said for Ryo, but he did show his Chameleon Striker mode, which got past NEL level players by himself, and I don't even gotta explain Sai. So even though he has the best Metavision out of all these guys and maybe even Sai, and his playstyle is really good, like his weapons do help him with that. Metavision helps him get good positions, and Direct Shot capitalizes on it. He lacks in being self-reliant. Like, even if he's in a good position because of Metavision, there's no saying that someone will pass to him, and Direct Shot isn't an absolute weapon where he's able to shoot from anywhere on the pitch, like Shido or Kaiser Impact. We see how hard it is for him to be self-reliant. Same argument could be made for some other players, but in terms of playstyle, not player, you might want the other players above him. Aiku is next, and the reason why I put him above Isagi is, again, him being self-reliant. His calculating playstyle, position, and specs are just one complete package. Like, they go hand in hand with one another. His Metavision helps him find weak spots, his physical specs and pressing help him counter those weak spots, and not to mention all those other weapons and feats he has. If Aiku was a striker, I would have 100% put Isagi above him. That's why I say position is really important and something to take into account, because as a striker, his weapons don't fit it well, but it does as a defender. So taking into account all of that, I decided to put Aiku above Isagi, don't get blinded by the fact that Isagi is smarter than all these guys, that you ignore all the other skills they have. Hiryo is next. Bro is literally the all-rounder. It's a playstyle you definitely want and maybe even need on your team, and that's the reason why I put him so high. The fact that he can do anything, push with chameleon striker mode, defend with metavision, and then obviously his midfielder feats. It just makes him super flexible. Add copy on top of that, the fact that he can be self-reliant if he needs to, and that he's working on his flaw of physique by joining Manshine. Hiryo is literally covering all his weaknesses. The only thing Hiryo lacks is that he doesn't have an absolute weapon, but copy 100% makes up for that, and his flexibility I think can be even better than an absolute weapon in some cases. I made a whole video about Hiryo, but his playstyle still deserves to be ranked really high. Again, even if he isn't as smart as Isagi. Alright, we're moving on to Sai, and I think the difference between Hiryo and the others between Sai is just huge. Like, Sai does what Hiryo does, just even better, like exponentially better. The flaws I talked about for Isagi, he covers like being able to do anything on his own. He's basically like a Bachira and Isagi combined, which is just crazy thinking about it. And although Sai doesn't have the striker capability as someone like Kaiser, his flexibility like Hiryo makes up for it like tenfold. Like, his playstyle is someone you want on their team. He can support his team with passes, he can move up on his own if he wants, he knows how to analyze and counter specific players, he has an insane scoring potential for a midfielder, he has metavision. What does bro lack? Sai at the top of S tier is a no-brainer. I don't need to say more. Alright, we're finally at the last playstyle, and it is the destructive playstyle. I didn't include the World 5 or Master Strikers. Maybe I'll do it at the end, but they would be in the destructive playstyle list. But we got Baro, Nagi, Rin, Shido, and Kaiser in there. You might be a little confused why I put Rin in here. Even though he has a calculating playstyle, I think he's going to evolve more to a destructive playstyle. And even though players like Nagi are weapon reliant, I'm going to put him in here because his weapon is destructive. I said it before. All right, let's rank them though and explain why. All right, so a destructive playstyle is absolutely insane. All the players ranked A tier or higher. Starting with the lowest, we got Nagi in low A tier. Nagi, he has an absolute weapon in his trapping. It's the reason why he's up here. He's able to defend, do mix-ups, and make impossible shots because of it, amongst other things as well. We've seen how insane Nagi is. Now, I don't think I could put him any higher just because of how weapon reliant he is. Like, he really is just a lazy genius, and although his weapons alone can put him in A tier, which is crazy by the way, he's literally beating all these flexible players with metavision and whatnot, it isn't enough to carry him any more forward. In my opinion, every other player above him you'd want because they can do more than just score, whether it be dribbling and creating an opening, or reading the field and stealing possession. You know what I mean. You also do have other options in the striker position. Like, scoring potential wise, you could compare him to someone like Baro, but Baro has so many other weapons and stuff that you'd want to pick Baro. This isn't about personality or just players alone. It's their playstyles, and that's why Nagi is going to be at the low A tier for me. Next up is probably one that's going to surprise you. It's going to be Shido in the mid A tier. And before y'all get your pitchforks or whatever, remember that Shido's playstyle isn't too good. Shido as a player is nuts. He's just crazy. His scoring capability is insane and has more flexibility than players like Nagi, hence why he's above him. But keep in mind his mentality of just doing things that excite him. Going 1 versus 21 and just fighting everyone isn't necessarily a playstyle you want. I'm kind of contradicting myself, but it's a playstyle you definitely want, but you don't 100% need. If that makes sense. Like, the reason why Gagamara is above him is because his playstyle, in correlation to his position as well, is something you 100% need. Shido, on the other hand, has other people that can replace him. It's basically weighing the pros and the cons. There are a lot of cons for Shido and less cons for Gagamaru. Both are important players, but you gotta make a choice between the two. But his absolute weapons do carry him all the way up to A tier, just like Nagi. And then he has his physique, good analysis skills, and stuff like that. That's why he's able to beat even all-around players like Harasu. He has the best absolute weapon 100%, and again, this is pre-PXG development Shido. We haven't seen how he's improved, so maybe he has some insane weapons where he'll go even further. Next up is Baro in the high A tier and just below Bachira. Now, Baro, ever since he joined the Ubers, got mega buff, Predator's Eye, learning to work as a team, actually passing. No doubt, Baro's in his prime right now. So that's why I have him over Shido and Nagi, because his flexibility is just better than theirs, mentality, and all that other stuff. He's also able to be a little self-reliant because of his chop dribbling, creating openings for himself, but it isn't on the same scale as Bachira. And that's the reason why I said being self-reliant is really important. Even though Baro has all that stuff and better scoring capability, the fact that Bachira can literally solo teams, he doesn't really need a good shot or Predator's Eye because he can just blitz them. Bachira can support his team with his weapons as well, like he's just a valuable asset. Like if you had Baro, you'd have to build a team around him like the Ubers, but Bachira just fits anywhere because of his weapons. Alright, getting into the S tier, near the mid to high, it's gonna be Itoshi Rin. I think we can all agree that Rin is just absolutely crazy. Like he has a calculating playstyle and then his unknown instinctive side. Access to the flow state, good shot, shot and shot range, spatial awareness, and feats in every position. You don't even want Rin, you need Rin. Like, I can't imagine a Blue Lock team without Rin. And even if he isn't a striker, you could easily put him in the midfielder position because he's also just a good team player. It's literally evident in the second selection, but he could defend if he needs to as well. With his brain and the scale of it, it's just crazy. The reason why he has Rayo B is that even though they are both really good all-rounders who can do almost everything, Rin can just do it better, and he's proved it. Rin is going above Rayo, even pre-PXG buffs. We'll see how it all plays out through soon. And now the last is Kaiser below Psy. This was literally one of the biggest arguments in the Blue Lock community. It's the reason why I didn't make a best players video, because it's very hard to compare Kaiser and Psy, but in terms of playstyle, my answer is right there. I think Psy is better. Because of his flexibility and being able to be more self-reliant than Kaiser, who needs Nest to really shine, he takes the top spot. Even if Kaiser didn't have Nest though, he has the second best playstyle, metavision, off-the-ball movements, and not to mention Kaiser impact. It's again a no-brainer. You definitely want his playstyle on your team. Psy can do that as well, not on the same scale as Kaiser Impact obviously, but he can still do it. And on top of that, he makes up for it with his defensive and midfielder plays. Alright, I've decided not to do the World 5 and the Master Strikers. It would have taken an extra 15 minutes, which is quite a long time. But here's the final tier list. I'll zoom out a little bit. If I were to make some final swaps, I think I'm underestimating Isagi's metavision as an absolute weapon. I think him between Aiku and Rayo are really interchangeable in my opinion. I think the rest is pretty accurate though. Maybe Ness above Hiyori and Yukimiya down to B tier, but I don't know. We'll just leave it like that. That's gonna be it for this video. If you watched to the end, thank you so much for watching. Make a lot of other Blue Lock content just like this, so if you're interested in that, consider subscribing. And if you're interested in discussing anything Blue Lock, join the community Discord. My name's Hiryo. It's time for me to get a haircut, and I'll see you guys in the next one.